Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're unpacking a highly analytical expert report on cybersecurity specifically within the financial sector. Now, the financial industry is fiercely targeted, and the reason is pretty simple. These firms act as massive data aggregation points. They hold incredibly concentrated volumes of sensitive wealth and identity metrics. So today, we're going to focus on a dynamic architectural defense mechanism that's designed to protect these nodes. It's called the Written Information Security Plan, or the WISP. Based strictly on expert reports and rigorous federal regulations, we are going to deconstruct exactly how this framework operates. We're going to skip the surface level advice and really analyze the core mechanisms and the cause and effect relationships that actually keep this sensitive data safe from some very sophisticated threat actors. All right, let's just dive right into this logical progression. We're going to cover 5 key areas: the catalyst of asymmetric risk, the core architecture of a WISP, the 6 pillars of cyber defense, continuous governance, and finally, the incident mitigation protocol. Starting off with section 1, the catalyst, asymmetric risk, and specifically, the disproportionate impact of a single vulnerability. The threat landscape we're dealing with today, it's completely unforgiving. According to anonymous expert security reports, financial and tax professionals sit on a literal treasure trove of sensitive data. And that creates an environment of severe asymmetric risk. What that means is the impact of a single breach is radically disproportionate to the size of the initial vulnerability. So I want to pose this question to you. Is a security plan merely a compliance checklist, or is it a living defensive architecture? We often hold this implicit assumption that just filling out the right paperwork equates to actual protection. But in a landscape where threat actors are constantly evolving their automated methods, treating your security as a static checklist isn't just ineffective, it creates a catastrophic structural vulnerability. Let's actually look at the underlying cause and effect here. A single system vulnerability yields massive financial fraud, but the consequences extend way beyond the initial hack. Lacking a mandated security plan triggers severe punitive measures from regulatory authorities. According to federal mandates, failing to maintain this operational architecture can legitimately result in authorities completely shutting down your business operations. In practice, that means freezing your processing abilities, revoking your professional credentials, and completely halting your revenue streams. And that rapidly leads to cascading client losses and punishing daily fines. It's an absolute operational necessity. Moving right along to section 2, core architecture of a WISP. We are going beyond the paperwork here. So what is it exactly? Well, industry security experts define the Written Information Security Plan, or WISP, as a mandatory, dynamic, operational architecture detailing exactly how a firm protects sensitive client data from cyber threats. I want to stress this. It is not a static document that just sits on a shelf collecting dust. It is a living protocol that absolutely must continuously adapt to new threats, internal staff changes, and technological shifts. It's basically the dynamic blueprint of your firm's survival. Now, baked into this architecture, federal regulations mandate some strict, non-negotiable legal components. You have to conduct regular, ongoing risk assessments to find your own weak points before the attackers do. You must execute complete encryption of client data. You absolutely need multi-factor authentication on all access points. And crucially, you must have an officially assigned security coordination officer. The mechanism here is vital. Even if you're a solo practitioner, formally assigning this role ensures that the responsibility for continuous monitoring and rapid response isn't just diffused or forgotten amidst your daily operations. Somebody has to definitively own this process. And this brilliantly illustrates the fundamental difference between a vulnerable firm and a resilient one. A static defense, relying on once-a-year checks, single passwords, and that classic set-it-and-forget-it mentality, that completely fails against modern automated threats. A dynamic WISP actively adapts. It requires continuous system risk assessments, multiple layers of authentication, and it evolves the precise moment a new employee is hired or an old legacy system gets retired. Let's look at Section 3, the 6 pillars of cyber defense. This is the technical implementation of the plan. Expert guidelines outline these first 5 pillars as standard facts of technical defense, and honestly, understanding their mechanisms is absolutely crucial. You need active, constantly updated antivirus software to recognize and isolate known malware signatures. Hardware and software firewalls. They operate by strictly filtering incoming and outgoing network traffic to basically block external probes. Multi-factor authentication across all accounts ensures that even if your credentials are compromised, they're functionally useless to an attacker without that secondary physical token. Drive encryption for all portable devices renders the data totally illegible if a laptop or drive gets stolen. And virtual private networks, or VPNs, function by creating an encrypted tunnel for remote access. This directly prevents man-in-the-middle attackers from intercepting data flowing between a remote laptop at a coffee shop and your office server. So the crucial point here is the 6th and, frankly, most critical pillar, the 3-2-1 backup rule. Interpreted by experts as the ultimate failsafe against total data destruction or ransomware, it dictates that you must have 3 copies of your data, stored in 2 different formats, with 1 copy kept completely offline. Think about it. If ransomware encrypts and locks your entire network, that 1 offline, air-gapped copy is the exact mechanism that ensures your business data actually survives and can be restored. As the expert report points out, failing to plan is planning to fail. But, there's a really dangerous implicit assumption hiding in there. The belief that technical systems alone can save you. They can't. And that exposes the most unpredictable and severe vulnerability in any security architecture, the human element. Which brings us to Section 4, Continuous Governance, the human element of security. Look, the absolute best technical defenses in the world are entirely useless without strict, continuous human oversight. Systems protect data, sure, but continuous employee training and active monitoring are the true safeguards here. A critical, non-obvious detail highlighted by experts is that threat actors rarely try to smash through your firewalls directly anymore. Instead, they exploit human psychology. They rely on an employee just opening a compromised personal email on the work network. When that happens, attackers can silently install keyloggers, entirely bypass your super expensive software perimeter, and just record your administrative passwords exactly as you typed them. Now, what's really interesting here is that the early warning indicators of a breach are rarely dramatic. There are no flashing red screens like in the movies. They are subtle anomalies. Threat actors want to maintain persistence on your network for as long as possible, so they can map your digital assets and locate the most valuable data. Because of this, you're looking for things like unusual or erratic account behavior, unexpected password reset prompts, or unrecognized login attempts from unknown locations. Sometimes the indicator even comes from the outside, like your client suddenly getting unexplainable phishing emails that look like they came from your office. If your staff isn't actively trained to spot and immediately escalate these subtle shifts, attackers will just map your network totally uninterrupted. Okay, Section 5, Incident Mitigation Protocol. Let's talk about stopping the hemorrhage. So what happens when the worst actually occurs? Well, we have to execute an exact, analytical, cause and effect protocol the very second a breach is detected. This is your active breach response. Step 1 is critically important. Actually, scratch that. It's highly counterintuitive and critical. Isolate the system by physically disconnecting it from the internet, but do not power the machines down. Powering down flushes a system's active memory, the RAM, and that destroys the critical forensic evidence that IT investigators desperately need to track where the malware came from and how far it spread. Step 2, contact your regulatory liaisons immediately. Step 3, notify appropriate law enforcement. Step 4, inform your clients and initiate credit monitoring. And Step 5, execute the recovery procedures outlined in your WISP with dedicated IT professionals so you can ensure the threat actor is fully eradicated before you ever reconnect. Zooming in on Step 4 for a second. Transparency here is both a legal requirement and an operational necessity. Federal regulations mandate that if a breach occurs, You absolutely must provide credit monitoring services for all exposed client identification numbers. And that doesn't just mean your direct client. It legally includes their spouses, their dependents, and any associated business entities. The mechanism of trust here is critical. Maintaining this level of immediate transparency isn't just about dodging regulatory fines. It strongly protects your firm's market reputation from cascading damage while securing your client's immediate financial safety. Furthermore, experts strongly advise a specific, highly actionable defense mechanism post-breach, instructing your clients to obtain a 6-digit identity protection PIN from regulatory authorities. This PIN acts as the ultimate post-breach firewall. It creates a secondary offline validation layer. So even if a threat actor has meticulously stolen every single piece of a client's digital identity, this mechanism renders all that stolen data completely inert. They literally cannot process fraudulent financial returns without that specific physical 6-digit code. So we've deconstructed the sheer asymmetry of cyber risks, the dynamic architecture of a WSOP, the technical pillars of defense, and the rigorous protocols required to actually survive a breach. I want to leave you with this highly provocative question. Will your current data security framework withstand an attack today? Or is it literally just a piece of paper sitting in a drawer somewhere? I really urge you to immediately assess your own operational architecture. Look past the compliance checkboxes, find those hidden vulnerabilities, and refine your defenses today. Because in this completely unforgiving landscape, your continuous preparation really is your only protection. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning and stay secure.